Hey everybody, welcome back to my table. I'm Robert, otherwise known as Birdman, one of the legends of Nirvana. Again, here with my cousin Chris. This is part four? Part four of Geek Week. We've been playing board games all week, and he's been gracious enough to kind of review them with me. And so some of the games that I'd probably be maybe a little less likely to get to the table with Randrak and Dragon Mother. So hopefully this piques their interest and maybe they'll want to play them too. So this time we're going to review for you Enchanters. So Enchanters has been out since 2020. I think it's actually a little bit older than that, but this version of Enchanters, which is the deluxe box, came out in 2020. The nice thing about this version, it's got all the expansions, and we'll go over that here in just a second. So overall ranking is 2070, but it's rated at 8.0, so pretty good score. It's designed by
Raphael?
No, it's not Raphael. It's like R-A-F-A-L. So Raphael Suwicki, Jack Galabiowski, art by Marta Flater, published by Gindie and Mythic Games. I'm very sorry for butchering those names. It's not my intent. Please forgive me. This game I bought at Gen Con, and I think I spent a little over $100. So I went to look to see how much it would cost for someone to buy it retail. I saw it for $115, and so that's it, but only at the Mythic website. I wasn't able to see it like sold on Amazon or brick and mortar game stores or online like Card House or Cool Stuff or something like that. I didn't see any version. Now I did see Miniature Market have a version for pre-order, but it's available now and it's been out for some time. So I don't know why you would need to pre-order it. So it's definitely out there. You just got to do a little bit of investigating and to be able to find a copy, which you'll probably find out here soon that we will highly recommend you go find a copy. It's a good game. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we'll talk about is components. We both ranked the components at a 9, which is actually kind of odd for me because generally with it's just a card-based game and not a whole lot to it, I generally don't give that good of a score because there's no fancy bits or anything, but this truly is just a card game. So what they did make, they made really well. Mm-hmm. And so you got these individual player mats. So again, this is the deluxe version. The standard retail version does not come with all this stuff. And so you get individual player mats with these neat little plastic tokens to keep track of your attack and your defense. You get all these plastic tokens, but you also get the cardboard, but you just replace the cardboard. And that's another nice thing that a lot of games don't do, so take note. They actually put a little sheet on here and shows you, all right, take out the cardboard and replace it with this. I like that a lot. So kudos to Mythic for doing that. So you got plastic bits to track different types of resources that you could potentially get. You got like a ninja star. We never used it in our particular game, but it looks like a little grenade or a smoke bomb. You've got negative health tokens. And then you also got these little tokens for when you defeat the overlord or the main bad guy. And then you got crystals, which is basically the money in the game. I got this huge mat to organize all of that, including your adventure deck, which has got all your factions in it, your town card, your overlord card, quest cards. You got a spot for a graveyard. And this is not everything. There's a ton of more stuff. So because of the quality of the mats, because the cards are linen finish and all the plastic bits, it's a 9.
I mean, on this edition also, I would say these neoprene mats that they printed on, they're nice, they feel good. But the back of them is actually got a grip on it, so that way it's not sliding all over your board. If you have a finished tabletop, it sticks right to the thing with no problems whatsoever, which was really, really nice. I mean, I can't say enough about how I felt about what they did for this card game in terms of making it player, is there still a possibility of table chaos coming into play? Of course.
Yeah.
But it's a lot less damaging in this aspect of this game, the way the things are set up.
Right. And there's not a whole lot to track either.
Right.
So it's not going to be terrible to figure that out either. So I think we're pretty equal on that 9 being a... Oh, the other thing that was really nice, which I can take a picture of, is the insert. So the insert is perfect, and there's tons of room
Perfect.
for even more expansions, which there's one coming out in a couple of months. So it's going to add even more factions and more stuff. And there's a ton of room for it all. Now, granted, my stuff's not sleeved. So if I were to sleeve it, it would probably take up a lot more space than what it's currently taken, which I'm seriously consider doing it because I think I like this enough that I want to bring it out and play it with more people. So I'm seriously tempted to sleeve this game because I think you'll need to, because the amount of shuffling that you have to do and deck building that you got to do, I think it'll be needed to sleeve it. Even though the cards are really good quality linen finish, because you're handling them so much, I think you need to sleeve them.
I pick up very few board game titles. I can tell you before we even get to the end of the review, this is a must buy for me. I'm going to end up getting it at some point to bring to my table because it's just a lot of fun for so many reasons.
All right, so that's a 9 for components. Now we're moving on to theme. Again, 9. Everything works in this game thematically. Now, granted, there are some standard kind of fantasy tropes, but there's unique characters, there's unique mechanics that fit those type of character classes, and just everything, it just works so well. There's a lot of flavor on the cards with flavor text. Everything, you got quests that also has the flavor text. You got towns that can do different things, villages, that can do different things. Just thematically, it just all feels good.
Well, even the artifacts you're kind of building for yourself, the ultimate weapons, they even are made so that 2 cards will form the title of whatever that weapon is.
So whatever the top 2 cards is, it'll say this of that.
Yeah, right.
And it's just, and some of them is pretty funny.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would call it Red Dragon in style humor in a lot of ways. It doesn't get very bawdy at all, but it's certainly very
tongue-in-cheek,
campy sort of feel to it and stuff. The artwork, if you play World of Warcraft, is very reminiscent of World of Warcraft to me. In a way.
But it very much feels like they pulled from a Japanese action / role-playing game type of world.
Oh, fused them together.
Yeah, it just really cool. And that's the other reason why the theme is so great for me, is the artwork. Just gorgeous.
It was Eastern meets Western fusion, and done in a way that I hadn't seen, even in video games, really, as far as how effectively it fused them. I mean, we had ninjas, pirates, monks, and I forget what my other one was. Oh, magicians.
Yeah, mages.
Mages. And it fused all those 4 elements together beautifully, seamlessly.
And I could just see where you could just pick any 4 and it'd probably play cool. Now, would it play as well as if you're a little bit more strategic and like built these uber decks that worked really well together combo-wise? Probably not, but I think it would still play well.
Right. And for the casual person pulling this out, which would be me.
Yeah, there's randomizers, so you can literally randomize everything about this game. Next, we'll move on to Rulebook. So the Rulebook was 9. There's a couple of different parts to the Rulebook, which, again, I really like the insert that tells you how to switch out the cardboard. You have a for your first game sheet, so it tells you what classes you should pick and what you shouldn't put in it yet, so that you can learn the basics of the game. But honestly, we pretty much added all the expansions for our first game, and it was still perfectly fine. This is not a complex game.
No.
So I would say if you're pretty comfortable with board games, you can initially add in most, if not all, the modules on your first playthrough.
And to say, I don't want to oversimplify the gameplay, though. I'd say if you're a fan of games like Magic the Gathering, for instance, you will find some familiarity in the way some of the components work. Now, they are on an easier level. I wouldn't quite call it Pokemon, maybe Yu-Gi-Oh level.
Yeah.
Of complexity. But again, it all works together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what blew my mind. And the best part, we never YouTubed for this, did we?
Right. No.
So there was no YouTube needed. We didn't have to go try and figure out the rulebook explained it.
So the rulebook is very effective. Now, there is a lot of text with some art, but again, it worked really well. And honestly, the rules itself was really, starting on page 4 is the flow of the game. Tells you about the action. So there's 1, 2, 3, literally 3 pages that tell you how to play the game. And it all worked. Now, the rest of it talks about variants. It talks about combat. It talks about, but the majority of it is then goes into a really nice where it talks about all the different factions and what they can do and the modules and the variants that each of the expansions that come in the deluxe box can do for it. And it all does a really good job of that. So this is dang near a perfect rule book.
Yeah.
And so I think if the text was just a little bit bigger and it would have been a little bit easier to read. So I'm actually going to give it a 9.5.
And
I mean, I initially thought of 9, but I talked myself up a 0.5 point because it's such an easy read.
I'll let you talk me up too. I'll go for 9.5.
So 9.5 was a good. I think it's darn near a perfect rule book. It's really good.
Maybe better paper and more artwork.
Yeah, because I did rip a page because it is very thin paper.
Yeah.
So that is a little bit of a bummer.
It's glossy, but
yeah, it's very thin. And so, all right, our last thing is gameplay. So our gameplay, it's a darn near simple, a pretty simple game like we talked about. So we played a 2-player game. So to set that up, we each picked 2 classes or factions. And so, like Chris said, we picked monks, mages, ninjas and pirates. And so then you go through the deck, and in the deck there will be marking on the face of the card. There'll be a 2 or nothing. So you're going to pull out all the cards that have the 2 on it, and then you're going to shuffle all those up, and then that'll be your adventure deck. Now, I just put a big stack of cards here to represent that adventure deck, but it's actually about half that size because you're taking out all the 2s and playing with just the 2s. But if you're playing with other player counts, it will adjust the amount of classes that you put in that. So it's probably going to be, I'm sure it'll be thicker, but I just don't know how much thicker.
Right.
So once you get your adventure deck set up, then you got to pick a village, and then you got to pick an overlord. And so the overlord is going to be your main bad guy. And so you get these little tokens, and it's equal to the number of players. And so once these tokens go away, the overlord basically is out of the game at that point. But he does all kinds of nasty stuff to try and stop, make it harder on you to attack either himself or herself or other monsters that come out and play. The village basically gives you options on what to do during one of your 2 phases, which is called the rest phase. It tells you what you can do during the rest phase, or it gives you options to possibly increase offense, increase defense, all kinds of cool stuff. And it always gives you some kind of scoring at the end of the game. So this one in particular that we did play with gave us victory points for each item that we controlled. And then we got quests on the far end. Quests are just this card that sits out. Everybody can see it. And as soon as someone meets the condition on the quest, you declare it, and then you get the card. Sometimes it's victory points. Sometimes it's a passive ability. Sometimes it's an ongoing ability. Sometimes it's just a really nice one-time event thing that would happen, but that's it. And so that's meeting the quests. We also scheduled, shuffled in events in our game. And generally, the events were some kind of negative effect.
Right, worldwide effect.
Yeah, so it affects everybody. And so it might be attach it to the nearest monster, and it might add 2 defense or 2 hit points to it, or it might increase his attack or something. And so those are events. But then once all this is set up, then you actually will deal out what's called the journey track. And so you just deal out the 6 cards.
Which will all be random right now.
Right. It's just all from one faction, but this is all shuffled up. And then as you can tell at the bottom of the board is you got these little pictures of crystals. Crystals is your money. And so you have to have crystals to buy anything beyond the first spot. The first spot's always free. But then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and up to 5. Now there's ways to reduce that if you get card combinations or monster abilities, stuff like that might be able to reduce or even negate the card. I had a really cool artifact or item that allowed me to jump and be able to get anything that's 3, 4, or 5 for free. And so that really, I didn't win the game, but it still got me some really cool stuff. And so basically you're getting crystals that then will try and buy you additional cards so that you're eventually hoping to build up enough attack power to go up against monsters that come out, which is represented by this blue claw symbol, and it'll have a hit point. So that's how much damage you have to deal to it, or to the overlord. And then if you go to the overlord, there's usually some kind of negative effect that will happen when you attack the overlord. And so you just got to pay attention. Each overlord very different. So what we fought against can be completely different with the next Overlord, and he may affect you if you don't attack him. He may affect you when you attack other monsters. Each Overlord's different. But the gist of the game is defeat the Overlord, get cool stuff, defeat monsters, get cool stuff, but eventually that adventure deck runs out. Once it runs out and everything in the journey track is gone, game over. Now you add up your victory points. Cards can be worth points. Quests can be worth points. Your village could be worth points that give you stuff. The Overlord will give you points. Cards themselves that you get could be worth additional victory points and bonus points looked off of what other card you got, all piled. And then the one other thing that we didn't talk about is actually how you get to use all this stuff. So when you buy a card, it's generally going to be an item or an enchantment. The item will go face up on the card. So for example, this is an item card. We don't have an enchantment card, so let's find an enchantment real quick so you can see that. So this is an enchantment card. And so you play these, and then it will give you stuff, but possibly. Like, so for example, this one gives me a +1 attack. So then I go to 1 attack because I don't have anything else. But then there might be stuff on the bottom that it gives me as well. So this one also gives me a defense. So right now I'm at 1 attack, 1 defense. And then also has abilities. So this one will say pay 2 crystals, I heal 1. So I would take a wound counter away. But that can change drastically with more cards that I can buy. So for example, whenever you get a card, you always scoot everything down. But let's say there's a lot of monsters in this set. So let's say I get another item card that I buy. So what you do is you actually cover the bottom one up until this little line at the bottom of the card. And if it covers anything up, then it's negated. But that card itself might give you other stuff as well. So in this case, I didn't cover anything up, but it does give me another attack. But now let's say this was an enchantment. And so if I covered up the enchantment, that 1 attack that it gave me is now covered up. I don't get it anymore, but it gave me another attack. So I'm still at 1. Stuff on the bottom will always be available, which is really cool. But the stuff on top can easily get covered up. And you have to pay attention to that because it will drastically affect what you can and can't do in the game.
That being said, there are certain cards that will have an unbury function, for instance, where you can pull that card back up to the top of the deck so that whatever benefit it has along the top that was previously covered up is now available for use again.
Yeah. And that was a cool ability you got. I never got that ability, but you did use that quite a bit.
Well, because I was cooler than you.
Well, yeah, whatever. And so, and that's the gist of the game. So some of the other tokens are based off the type of monsters you got. So some of them might give you these looks like a little ninja star. And then there's cards that say if you use a ninja star, do this. Or if you don't have a ninja star, you can't attack them. And so stuff like that. And like I said, we never really used look like the smoking grenade little bomb thing. So I don't know what that does. But in a nutshell, that's Enchanters. Right. Can you think of anything? Did I miss something as far as play?
I think that, while it does encourage, player versus player, it's not punishing when you do it. It keeps it light and fun. So, you can have some laughs while you're playing the game without it being something where you feel abused or somebody walks away sore because...
Yeah, it's not game ending.
Yeah, they got smeared all over the game board. So, I mean, it's...
So, what were some of your positives? What did you like about gameplay?
I love the variety. I love the fact that it fused, East and Western culture mythos together. It wasn't just standard affair. It certainly gave that JRPG kind of feel to a lot of it. But again, you had pirates and you had magicians and stuff. And you had, I saw some other things in there. By the way,
this game did solve that age-old question. Ninjas are better than pirates.
Wait a minute. The pirates won.
No. You won.
But
not the pirates. You weren't a pirate.
Well,
those were all decks available to us.
I chose a pirate because they say "arr."
Well, I know, but it's still the pirates themselves didn't win. You won, and ninjas are better.
Well, now you're just raining on my parade.
It's all right. So I think that I agree with you. I really like the variety. I really liked the artwork and the kind of the mashup of different themes going on. But probably one of the things I like the most is just how quick. It's a quick game, and it's a fun game. So you can easily knock out the setup is the longest part of the game. And so therefore, if you transition games, it's putting all the factions back into their individual decks, picking four, again, 2-player game, picking 4 more factions, setting it up. That'll be the hardest, or not even the hardest, but the longest part of the game. But the game itself took us about an hour, I think, maybe an hour, 20 minutes, with, probably 15, 20 minutes set up and 15-minute takedown.
And I mean, honestly, the way I would position it most is to say, if you are a fan of games like Ascension, Hero Realms, Star Realms, even Thunderstone, I'd say this is a great segue between the difficulty level in games like Star Realm or Hero Realms or even Ascension. I'd say Ascension being the easiest of those to learn, and then Thunderstone being a more complex slightly than this. This is a nice segue between the two.
And it's not deck building like those, but it's got similarities.
It's got many similarities.
For sure. And so you're building, actually thematically, you're building an artifact, like Chris mentioned earlier. And so the artifact is named whatever those top 2 cards are, but that's the artifact you're trying to build. You're just trying to build the best artifact and do the most damage. So
right.
So the gameplay wise, Chris, you gave it a 9.5.
9.5.
I gave it a 9. It's a awesome game. I think that it's even though it's got a lot of different elements to it, it's because it's quick and easy. I think you could teach. I think just about any child.
Oh yeah,
I mean probably anybody above the age of 9. And I think you could do it.
I think there's enough meat on the bone.
Yeah,
for casual and consistent board game players, either one, they're going to have a good time with it.
Right. So, it's a great game. We recommend it. So I highly recommend it. So, all right. Well, there you go. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and that like button, and so that you can see more videos coming from the Legends of Nirvana. And then we got a couple more to do for Geek Week here, so you'll be seeing those here hopefully soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.